I didn't realize I was lonely until she said yes. Not lonely in the obvious way. I had friends. I had family who called on Sundays. I had a job that kept me busy enough to avoid thinking too hard about the shape my life had taken. But there was this space inside me, this quiet room I'd been living in for so long that I'd forgotten what it felt like to let someone else in. And then Claire said, okay. Just like that. Like she'd been waiting. I was 29 when I moved into that apartment. Ground floor, decent neighborhood, close enough to work that I could walk when the weather was good. The place came with hardwood floors that creaked in the morning and a kitchen window that caught the afternoon light just right. It also came with Claire. She lived in a unit next to mine. We shared a wall. For the first few months, I barely noticed her. I'd see her sometimes in the hallway. Dark hair always pulled back, oversized sweaters, canvas tote bags that looked like they carried the weight of the world. She'd nod. Either not. We'd both keep walking. It was the music that made me notice her. Late nights, around 11 or midnight, I'd hear it through the wall. Not loud, just present. Old jazz records, the kind with static and warmth. Chet Baker, Billie Holiday, sometimes classical piano that felt too sad to be background noise. I started staying up later just to hear what she'd play next. One night, around 1 a.m., the music stopped mid-song. Then I heard her laugh. Not a polite laugh, a real one. The kind that sounds like surprise. I realized she'd caught me humming along. The next morning, I found a note slipped under my door. Sorry if the music's too loud. I'll keep it down. Her handwriting was small and careful. I wrote back, don't. I was enjoying it. I slid the note under her door before I could overthink it. That's how it started. Little notes. Recommendations. She'd suggest albums. I'd suggest books. We'd leave them for each other like breadcrumbs, building something neither of us acknowledged out loud. Then one Sunday, I ran into her at the corner coffee shop. She was sitting by the window with a book, and for the first time, I saw her without the armor of routine. She looked tired. Not sleepy tired. Tired in a way that lives deeper. Mind if I sit? I asked. She looked up. For a second, I thought she might say no. Sure, she said. We didn't talk much that first time. Just sat there, both pretending to read, both aware of the other person in a way that made reading impossible, but felt comfortable, like we'd done this before. After that, Sunday coffee became a thing. We'd talk about small things. Work, weather, the weird guy on the third floor who always wore a suit. But sometimes, in the spaces between words, I'd catch her looking at me like she was trying to figure something out. I wanted to ask what she was thinking, but I was afraid of the answer. 3 months into our Sunday routine, I told her about the road trip. I've been planning it for a while. One of those things you say you're going to do and never actually do. Drive up the coast, no real destination, just go until I felt like stopping. I'd booked the time off work, rented a car, made a playlist. Sounds lonely, she said. That's kind of the point, I said. She stirred her coffee slowly, not looking at me. You ever feel like you're waiting for something, but you don't know what it is? The question caught me off guard. Yeah, I said. All the time. She nodded, like that was the answer she expected. I don't know what made me say it. Maybe it was the way the light was hitting her face. Maybe it was the fact that I was tired of that quiet room inside me. You should come with me, I said. I meant it as a joke. The kind of thing you say to fill space. But she looked at me, really looked at me, and said, okay. Not like she was deciding. Like she'd already decided a long time ago. Wait, seriously? I said. Why not? She shrugged, but there was something in her voice. Something careful. You said you wanted company. I could use a break. I was kidding. I'm not. We stared at each other across the table, and I felt something shift, like a door I didn't know was closed had just opened. Okay, I said. Okay, yeah, let's do it. She smiled. Small, quiet, but real. When do we leave? The week before the trip, I barely saw her. I'd hear her music through the wall, but she didn't come to Sunday coffee. I started to wonder if she'd changed her mind. Then the night before we were supposed to leave, there was a knock on my door. Claire stood there with a duffel bag and a nervous expression. I'm not backing out, she said quickly. I wanted to make sure you weren't. I wasn't planning on it. Good. She shifted the bag on her shoulder. I've never done this before. Spontaneous road trip? Any of it. She didn't elaborate, and I didn't push. We left at dawn. The city looked different in that early light, softer, like it hadn't decided what kind of day it wanted to be yet. Claire sat in the passenger seat with her feet tucked under her, watching the buildings give way to highway. She didn't say much of the first hour. Just listened to the playlist I'd made, occasionally humming along to songs I didn't know she knew. "Tell me something," she said suddenly. "Like what?" "I don't know. Something you don't usually tell people." I thought about it. Try to find something that felt true, but not too heavy. "I think I've been on autopilot for the last 5 years," I said. Just going through the motions, waiting for something to feel real again. She was quiet for a long time. "Yeah," she said finally. "Me too." We stopped for breakfast at a diner that looked like it hadn't changed since 1987. Red vinyl booths, laminated menus, coffee that tasted like it had been sitting since yesterday. Claire ordered pancakes and didn't finish them. She kept looking out the window at the highway, her expression somewhere between nervous and excited. "You okay?" I asked. "I almost didn't come," she admitted. "Last night, I was packing and I thought, what am I doing? I barely know you. This is insane. But you came anyway." "Yeah." She smiled a little. "I came anyway." "Why?" She looked at me, then really looked at me, and I saw something vulnerable in her expression. "Because I'm tired of being careful," she said. "I'm tired of waiting for the right moment or the right person or the right whatever. I just wanted to say yes to something, even if it's terrifying." She told me about growing up in a small town where everyone knew everyone's business. I told her about my family's expectations and how I'd spent most of my 20s trying to meet them. "When did you stop?" she asked. "I'm not sure I have." She nodded, like she understood exactly what I meant. By late afternoon, we'd reached the coast. The ocean stretched out gray and endless, the sky heavy with clouds that threatened rain but never delivered. We found a motel, one of those places that's seen better days but has character. The kind with thin walls and a flickering neon sign. "2 rooms?" the clerk asked. Claire and I looked at each other. "2 rooms," I said. But that night, after we'd both settled in, I heard a knock on my door. She stood there in an oversized t-shirt and sweatpants, looking younger than usual. "I can't sleep," she said. "Too quiet. You want to come in?" She nodded. We ended up sitting on the floor, backs against the bed, talking in the dark. She told me about the year she lost her mom. How she'd spent months just existing. Going through the motions because that's what you do. "That's when I started the music," she said. Late at night. It was the only thing that felt real. "I'm sorry," I said. "Don't be. I'm okay now. Mostly." She paused. "But I think that's why I said yes to the trip. Because you're the first person in a long time who's made me want to feel something again." My heart was pounding so hard I was sure she could hear it. "Claire, you don't have to say anything," she said quickly. "I just wanted you to know." But I did have something to say. I just didn't know how to say it without it sounding like every other confession that falls flat. So instead, I took her hand in the dark. She held on tight. We spent 3 days driving up the coast. Each day we talked more, shared more, let our guards down a little further. But there was also this tension building between us. This awareness. Every accidental touch felt electric. Every shared glance lasted a beat too long. On the third night, we stopped in a small coastal town. There was a bar with live music, a guy with a guitar playing covers of songs we both knew. Claire ordered whiskey. I'd never seen her drink whiskey before. "Trying something new," she said. "Seems to be your thing lately." She laughed, and the sound made something in my chest ache. Halfway through the second song, she turned to me and said, "Dance with me." Here. Why not? There were maybe 5 other people in the bar, and none of them were dancing. But she stood up and held out her hand, and I couldn't say no. We swayed more than danced, her head resting against my shoulder, my hand on the small of her back. The song was slow and sad, and I could feel her breathing against my chest. "I'm glad I came," she whispered. "Me too, even though it's terrifying, especially because it's terrifying." She pulled back just enough to look at me, and I saw everything I'd been feeling reflected in her eyes. "What are we doing?" she asked softly. "I don't know," I admitted, "but I don't want to stop." She kissed me then, soft and tentative and perfect. When we pulled apart, she was smiling. "Okay," she said. "Okay." We drove back to the city 2 days later. The closer we got, the quieter she became. "What happens now?" she asked as we pulled into our building's parking lot. I don't know, I said. What do you want to happen? She looked at me, and I saw the fear there. The same fear I was feeling. I want this to be real, she said. But I'm scared it won't be. That we'll go back to our separate apartments, and this will just fade. It won't, I said. Not if we don't let it. She wanted to believe me. I could see it. What if I'm not ready? She whispered. Then we go slow. We figure it out. Together. She nodded, tears in her eyes. Okay, she said. Okay. That night, I heard her music through the wall. But this time, I didn't just listen. I knocked on her door. She opened it, surprised. Hi, I said. Can I come in? She stepped aside, and for the first time, I saw her space. Books everywhere. Records stacked by the window. String lights that made everything feel softer. I've been thinking, I said, about what you said. About being scared. Yeah, I'm scared too. But I think I've been scared for so long that I forgot what it feels like to want something enough to risk it. She was quiet, watching me. I want to risk it, I said. With you, if you'll let me. She crossed the room and kissed me. And this time it wasn't tentative. This time it was a promise. Okay, she whispered against my lips. Let's be terrified together. Months later, we still live next door to each other. We keep our separate apartments because we're both still learning how to share a space. But most nights, one of us ends up in the other's place. We still do Sunday coffee. Still trade music recommendations. Still have moments where we're both scared of how much this means. But we show up anyway, because that's what we decided. On that road trip, in that bar, in those quiet moments when it would have been easier to walk away. We decided to say yes. And I didn't realize until she said okay. Like she'd been waiting, that I'd been waiting too. For someone to make the quiet room inside me feel less empty. For someone to make the music sound less lonely. For someone to remind me what it feels like to want something real. If you like this video, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. Thanks.